The massive iron gates of the Montgomery estate swung open as the black sedan glided up the circular driveway. Elena Rodriguez stepped out of the car, clutching her small suitcase, and looking up at the towering mansion that would be her new workplace. The three-story Georgian house stretched across perfectly manicured lawns, with tall white columns and enormous windows that gleamed in the afternoon sun. At 62 years old, Elena had worked as a domestic helper for wealthy families across the city, but nothing had prepared her for the grandeur of the Montgomery property. The house seemed to go on forever, with wing after wing extending in both directions. Fountains danced in the courtyard, and rose gardens bloomed in neat rows along stone pathways. Mrs. Victoria Montgomery met Elena at the front door. Dressed in a cream-colored silk blouse and pearls, she carried herself with the rigid posture of someone accustomed to giving orders. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a perfect chignon, and her blue eyes held a coldness that made Elena shiver despite the warm weather. "You must be the new maid," Victoria said without offering a handshake. "I trust the agency explained our situation." Elena nodded respectfully. "Yes, ma'am. I understand you need someone to help care for your daughter." Victoria's expression tightened. "Sophia is challenging. She's 8 years old and has never spoken a single word. We've had specialists, therapists, and doctors examine her for years. Nothing works. The previous maids couldn't handle her behavior." As they walked through the marble foyer, Elena noticed family portraits lining the walls. In every photograph, a beautiful little girl with dark curls and enormous brown eyes stood between her parents, but something seemed different about her expression. While her parents smiled confidently at the camera, Sophia's eyes held a depth of sadness that seemed impossible for such a young child. "My husband Richard built this empire from nothing," Victoria continued as they climbed the grand staircase. "Montgomery Industries employs thousands of people. We cannot have a daughter who embarrasses the family name." Elena wanted to ask what Victoria meant by embarrassing, but she kept quiet. She needed this job desperately. Her own daughter Maria was studying medicine at university, and the tuition costs were crushing Elena's savings. They reached the second floor, where Victoria led her down a long hallway lined with expensive paintings and antique furniture. Sophia spends most of her time in her room or the library. She reads constantly, but never speaks to anyone, not even to us. Victoria stopped in front of a heavy wooden door painted white with gold trim. "This is her room. She's probably in there now." She knocked twice. "Sophia, the new maid is here." No response came from behind the door. "You see what I mean?" Victoria sighed. "She ignores everyone. Sometimes I wonder if she's even capable of understanding what we say to her." Elena studied the closed door. In her experience with children, silence usually meant fear, not inability. "May I meet her?" Victoria shrugged. "You can try, but don't expect much." She opened the door and stepped inside. The bedroom was larger than Elena's entire apartment. Tall windows overlooked the gardens, and built-in bookshelves covered 2 walls from floor to ceiling. Toys sat untouched in organized bins, while books lay scattered across every surface. In the center of the room, a small girl sat cross-legged on a Persian rug, surrounded by open picture books. Sophia Montgomery was beautiful in the way that made people stop and stare. Her dark hair cascaded in perfect ringlets past her shoulders, and her brown eyes were so large they seemed to take up half her face. She wore an expensive pink dress with white lace trim, but her feet were bare. When they entered the room, Sophia looked up briefly, made eye contact with Elena for just a moment, then returned her attention to her books. Elena noticed something important in that split second of connection. The child's eyes weren't empty or confused. They were sharp and intelligent, taking in every detail. "Sophia, this is Elena," Victoria announced in the voice people use when talking to pets. "She'll be helping take care of you." Sophia didn't look up again, but Elena saw her shoulders tense slightly. "I'll show you to your quarters," Victoria said, already heading toward the door. "Dinner is at 6. Sophia usually eats in her room because she makes such a mess." Elena lingered for a moment, studying the books scattered around Sophia. She was surprised to see advanced chapter books mixed in with picture books. "What are you reading?" she asked softly. Sophia's head tilted slightly, as if she was listening, but she didn't respond or look up. "Elena," Victoria called sharply from the hallway. "Come along." As Elena turned to leave, she caught sight of something that made her pause. On Sophia's nightstand sat a small framed photograph of a woman Elena didn't recognize. The woman had kind eyes and was holding a baby. Something about the photograph seemed important, but Victoria was calling again, so Elena hurried to catch up. The servants' quarters were located on the third floor, in what had once been the attic. Elena's room was small, but comfortable, with a single bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out over the estate's vegetable gardens. It was certainly better than some places she had worked. Over the next few days, Elena settled into the household routine. She woke at 5:30 each morning to prepare breakfast for the family. Richard Montgomery left for his office by 7, usually without saying more than a few words to anyone. Victoria spent her mornings on phone calls, organizing charity events and social gatherings, then left for lunch dates and shopping trips. Sophia remained a mystery. She ate the meals Elena brought to her room, but never said thank you. She followed the daily schedule Victoria had created, but showed no enthusiasm for anything. Tutors came and went, teaching her mathematics, literature, and languages, but they all complained about her lack of participation. Elena began to notice patterns in Sophia's behavior. The child was definitely listening to everything around her, even when she pretended not to be paying attention. When Elena hummed while cleaning, Sophia would stop whatever she was doing and tilt her head toward the sound. When Elena spoke Spanish during phone calls to her own daughter, Sophia would glance in her direction with obvious curiosity. Most telling of all, Sophia seemed to understand every instruction given to her. When Elena asked her to pick up toys or wash her hands, the girl would comply immediately. She clearly comprehended language perfectly well. On Elena's 5th day at the Montgomery estate, she made an important discovery. While cleaning Sophia's bathroom, she noticed several prescription bottles hidden behind towels in the linen closet. The labels showed they belonged to Sophia, and they were all medications for anxiety and depression. Heavy medications that seemed inappropriate for such a young child. Elena's hands shook as she read the labels. These were serious drugs with significant side effects. She had seen similar medications destroy the personalities of elderly patients in previous jobs. Why would parents give such strong medications to an 8-year-old? That evening, Elena watched more carefully during dinner preparation. Victoria mixed something into Sophia's food before taking the tray upstairs. When Elena asked what it was, Victoria replied curtly that it was medicine to help Sophia stay calm. Elena's heart began to race. She had raised her own daughter and had worked with many children over the years. Sophia didn't seem naturally aggressive or hyperactive. In fact, she appeared unusually well-behaved for a child her age. Why did she need medication to stay calm? Over the weekend, Elena began to piece together more disturbing information. While organizing papers in Richard's study, she found medical reports describing Sophia as having selective mutism with oppositional defiant disorder. The reports recommended continued medication and behavioral therapy. But Elena had observed Sophia carefully for days now. The child showed no signs of oppositional behavior. She followed instructions, kept her room neat, and never caused any trouble. If anything, she seemed almost too compliant, like a child who had learned that any form of self-expression led to punishment. Elena decided to conduct her own experiment. On Monday morning, she prepared Sophia's breakfast without the additional medication Victoria usually added. She wanted to see how the child behaved when she wasn't under the influence of mood-altering drugs. The difference was remarkable. Within hours, Sophia seemed more alert and engaged with her surroundings. She made more eye contact, showed interest in activities around the house, and even smiled slightly when Elena told her a funny story about her own childhood. But by evening, when Victoria returned from her social activities, she immediately noticed the change in Sophia's demeanor. "She seems agitated today," Victoria observed, adding extra medication to the child's dinner. "Make sure she gets her full dose." Elena watched in horror as Sophia's bright alertness faded back into the dull compliance she had shown before. The child's eyes grew heavy, and her responses became sluggish. It was like watching someone's personality disappear before her eyes. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the photograph on Sophia's nightstand and wondering who the woman in the picture could be. She also wondered about Sophia's past and why such a young child would need such heavy medication. The next morning, Elena decided to take a risk. While Victoria was out and Sophia was in the library, she approached the child with genuine curiosity rather than the patronizing attitude everyone else seemed to use. "I notice you love books," Elena said, sitting down near Sophia on the library's oriental carpet. "I love books too. My daughter is studying to become a doctor, and she reads all the time." Sophia looked up from her book for just a moment, and Elena caught something like interest flickering in her brown eyes. "Would you like to hear about where I come from?" Elena continued. "I grew up in a small village in Mexico where my grandmother told the most amazing stories. She knew about plants and natural remedies that could heal almost anything." This time, Sophia set her book down completely and turned toward Elena. The child's attention was focused and intelligent, nothing like the vacant stare Elena had seen when Sophia was heavily medicated. Elena took a deep breath and made a decision that would change everything. "My grandmother taught me that sometimes when people can't find their voice, it's because something is blocking their spirit. She had special ways to help people find their strength again." Sophia's eyes widened slightly, and for the first time since Elena had arrived, the child seemed truly present and engaged. Elena leaned closer and lowered her voice to a whisper. "Would you like me to show you some of my grandmother's wisdom? It might help you feel stronger." Sophia nodded once, very slowly, and Elena knew she had found the key to reaching this mysterious child. Whatever was keeping Sophia silent wasn't a medical condition. It was something much more complicated and much more dangerous. As footsteps echoed in the hallway, signaling Victoria's return, Elena quickly stood up and resumed her cleaning duties. But she had seen something in Sophia's eyes that gave her hope. Behind the medication and the silence, a bright, intelligent child was waiting to be freed. Elena began planning her next move carefully. She would need to be smart and cautious because she was beginning to suspect that Sophia's silence wasn't just a personal tragedy. It might be the result of something much darker happening within the walls of the Montgomery mansion. Elena spent the next few days carefully observing the Montgomery household while forming a plan to help Sophia. She noticed that Victoria's schedule was predictable. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Victoria attended lengthy board meetings for her various charity organizations, leaving the house from 10 in the morning until late afternoon. During one of these absences, Elena decided to explore areas of the house she hadn't been shown. She wanted to understand more about Sophia's history and why such a young child was being kept in what seemed like a medicated stupor. The basement of the Montgomery mansion housed Richard's private office, which was separate from his study upstairs. Elena had been told never to clean this area, but her curiosity overcame her caution. Using her master key, she quietly entered the soundproof office. The room was intimidating, with dark wood paneling and heavy leather furniture. File cabinets lined one wall, and a massive safe stood in the corner. But what caught Elena's attention was a collection of framed photographs on Richard's desk that weren't displayed anywhere else in the house. These pictures showed Richard with a different woman, someone with kind eyes and dark hair who looked remarkably like Sophia. In several photos, this woman held baby Sophia, and both mother and child looked genuinely happy. Elena realized this must be Sophia's biological mother, not Victoria. Elena's hands trembled as she picked up one photograph that showed the woman laughing while toddler Sophia played in a garden that looked nothing like the formal grounds of the Montgomery estate. These seemed like memories from a different life entirely. Behind the photographs, Elena found a folder labeled Legal Documents, Confidential. Inside were papers that made her blood run cold. Adoption records showed that Sophia had been legally adopted by Richard and Victoria when she was 3 years old. But the circumstances described in the legal notes were disturbing. According to the documents, Sophia's biological mother had died in what was officially ruled an accidental overdose. But there were questions raised by family members who suspected foul play. The mother had been trying to leave Richard and take Sophia with her when she died suddenly. Elena read further and discovered that the biological mother had left evidence suggesting Richard was involved in illegal business dealings that put their family in danger. She had been planning to testify against him when she died under mysterious circumstances. The adoption had been fast-tracked through Richard's legal connections, and Victoria had agreed to marry Richard specifically to provide a stable home environment for Sophia. But the marriage seemed to be more of a business arrangement than a loving family situation. Most shocking of all, Elena found medical records showing that Sophia had been a normal, talkative child before her mother's death. The selective mutism had begun immediately after the trauma of losing her mother and being placed in an unfamiliar home with strangers. Elena photographed several key documents with her phone, knowing she was taking an enormous risk. If Richard discovered her in his private office, she would certainly be fired and possibly worse. But Sophia deserved someone fighting for her truth. As she prepared to leave the office, Elena noticed something else important. A locked filing cabinet had several labels that mentioned ongoing legal challenges to Sophia's adoption. Apparently, the biological mother's family was still fighting to gain custody of Sophia, claiming the adoption had been fraudulent. Elena realized why Richard and Victoria were keeping Sophia heavily medicated. A child who could speak might eventually tell someone about her memories of her real mother or reveal information that could expose Richard's illegal activities. Keeping her silent protected their secrets. When Elena returned upstairs, she found Sophia in the library as usual, but this time the child was staring out the window instead of reading. Elena sat down beside her and spoke softly. "Sophia, I found some pictures of your mama," Elena whispered. "The one who looked like you." Sophia's entire body went rigid, and she turned to stare at Elena with wide, desperate eyes. "I think you remember her," Elena continued carefully. "I think you miss her very much." Tears began streaming down Sophia's face, but she remained silent. Elena's heart broke watching this child struggle with grief and fear that no 8-year-old should have to carry alone. "My grandmother taught me that when people lose their voices, sometimes they need special help to find them again," Elena explained. She knew about plants and herbs that could clear away the fog in someone's mind. Elena reached into her purse and pulled out a small glass vial filled with clear liquid. She had prepared this mixture the night before, using techniques her grandmother had taught her decades ago in Mexico. The liquid contained natural ingredients known to counteract the effects of sedative medications. "This is made from plants that grow in my homeland," Elena explained. "It's completely natural and safe. It might help you think more clearly and remember things better." Sophia stared at the vial with intense curiosity, but obvious fear. "You don't have to drink it if you don't want to," Elena assured her. "But if you do, I promise I'll stay with you and keep you safe. Nothing bad will happen." Sophia looked around the library nervously, as if checking to make sure they were alone. Then she reached out with a shaking hand and took the vial from Elena. "Just a few drops under your tongue," Elena instructed. "That's all you need." Sophia uncapped the vial and carefully placed 3 drops of liquid under her tongue, exactly as Elena had shown her. Then she handed the vial back and waited. For the first few minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Sophia continued sitting quietly on the library carpet, but Elena noticed her breathing had become deeper and more relaxed. The tension in her shoulders began to ease. After about 10 minutes, Sophia's eyes began to clear in a way Elena had never seen before. The dull, medicated fog lifted, and intelligence and awareness flooded back into her expression. "How do you feel?" Elena asked gently. Sophia opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again, looking frightened. "It's okay," Elena encouraged. "You're safe with me. I won't let anyone hurt you." Sophia took a deep breath and whispered so quietly Elena almost missed it. "I remember her." Elena's eyes filled with tears. These were the first words Sophia had spoken in years. "Tell me what you remember," Elena urged softly. "She smelled like flowers," Sophia whispered, her voice gaining slightly more strength. "She used to sing to me in Spanish. She said we were going to go live somewhere safe, just the two of us." Elena nodded encouragingly. "What else do you remember?" "The night she went to sleep forever," Sophia continued, tears streaming down her face. There were loud voices downstairs. "She was scared. She hid papers in my teddy bear and told me to never tell anyone about them." Elena's pulse quickened. "Do you still have that teddy bear?" Sophia nodded and pointed toward her bedroom. "He's in my closet. Victoria said he was too old and ratty, but I hid him where she couldn't throw him away." Elena realized they had stumbled onto something incredibly important. If Sophia's mother had hidden evidence in a teddy bear, it might be the key to exposing whatever illegal activities had led to her death. "Sophia, I need you to listen carefully," Elena said urgently. "The medicine Victoria gives you makes it hard for you to think clearly. That's why you haven't been able to remember these things or speak about them." Sophia nodded solemnly. "I know. Sometimes when I don't take all of it, I remember more things. But then Victoria gets angry and gives me more. We're going to figure out how to help you," Elena promised. "But first, I need to see what your mama hid in your teddy bear. Can you show me?" Sophia stood up immediately and led Elena to her bedroom. From the back of her closet, behind formal dresses she never wore, she pulled out a brown teddy bear that was indeed well-worn and loved. One of his arms had been carefully opened and sewn back together. With trembling fingers, Sophia opened the hidden seam and pulled out a plastic bag containing folded papers and a small digital memory card. Elena's breath caught as she unfolded the papers. They contained detailed records of Richard's business dealings, including evidence of money laundering, tax evasion, and connections to dangerous criminal organizations. The memory card likely contained digital evidence to support these claims. "Your mama was very brave," Elena told Sophia. "She was trying to protect you and make sure bad people couldn't hurt anyone else." "Why didn't she take me with her that night?" Sophia asked, her voice breaking. Elena hugged the little girl tightly. "I think she planned to, but something went wrong. The important thing is that she made sure you would have this evidence when you were old enough to understand it." They heard the front door slam downstairs, signaling Victoria's early return from her meetings. "Quick," Elena whispered. "Put everything back exactly where it was. We'll figure out what to do with this information, but we have to be very careful." Sophia quickly hid the teddy bear and wiped her tears. By the time Victoria reached the second floor, both Elena and Sophia were sitting quietly in the library, with Sophia appearing to read while Elena dusted nearby shelves. "How has she been today?" Victoria asked Elena, studying Sophia suspiciously. "Very quiet, as usual," Elena replied carefully. "She's been reading most of the afternoon." Victoria walked closer to Sophia and peered at her face. "She looks different somehow. More alert." Elena's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "Perhaps she's feeling better. Sometimes children have good days and bad days." Victoria frowned, but didn't pursue the observation. "Make sure she gets her full dose of medication with dinner." The doctor stressed how important consistency is for her treatment. After Victoria left, Elena and Sophia exchanged a meaningful glance. They both understood that they were now conspirators in something much larger and more dangerous than either of them had anticipated. That evening, Elena watched Victoria prepare Sophia's dinner and saw exactly which medications were being added to the food. She made mental notes of everything, Knowing this information might be crucial later. When Elena brought Sophia her dinner tray, she whispered quickly, "I'm going to contact someone who can help us. Until then, try to act the same way you did before. Don't let them know you can speak clearly now." Sophia nodded and began eating her medicated meal, but Elena noticed she was only eating around the edges where the medication hadn't been mixed in thoroughly. Late that night, Elena called her daughter Maria from her room and explained the situation carefully. As a medical student, Maria understood the implications of giving such heavy psychiatric medications to a young child without proper justification. "Mama, you have to be very careful," Maria warned. "If this man has the connections you think he does, he could make you disappear just like Sophia's mother." "I can't leave this child in this situation," Elena replied firmly. "She's completely helpless, and I might be her only chance at a normal life." "Then, you need professional help," Maria advised. "Contact Child Protective Services, but also contact the FBI. If there's evidence of money laundering and criminal activity, they'll be very interested." Elena agreed to seek official help, but she also knew she needed to continue protecting Sophia in the immediate future. The natural remedy she had given the child would wear off within a day or two, and she would need to find ways to continue counteracting the effects of the psychiatric medications without raising suspicion. Over the next several days, Elena carefully documented everything she observed in the Montgomery household. She photographed medications, recorded Victoria's treatment of Sophia, and noted Richard's suspicious business phone calls. She also began giving Sophia small doses of her grandmother's natural remedy every few days, always when Victoria was away from the house. Each time, Sophia became more alert and communicative, sharing more memories about her biological mother and the night she died. Through these conversations, Elena learned that Sophia had witnessed much more than anyone realized. She had seen her mother hide other evidence around their previous home, and she remembered specific conversations about Richard's dangerous business associates. Elena realized that Sophia wasn't just a traumatized child who had lost her voice. She was potentially the key witness in a major criminal case, and her silence had been artificially maintained to prevent her from exposing the truth about her mother's death and Richard's illegal activities. The question now was how to safely extract Sophia from this dangerous situation and get the evidence to the proper authorities before Richard and Victoria realized what Elena had discovered. Elena knew she needed help, but she also knew she had to be extremely careful about who she trusted. Richard Montgomery's wealth and connections meant he likely had people working for him in various government agencies and law enforcement departments. Following her daughter Maria's advice, Elena decided to contact the FBI directly, but she wanted to have all her evidence organized before making that call. She spent several sleepless nights documenting everything she had learned, creating a detailed timeline of events, and gathering proof of the medication abuse. During this time, she continued giving Sophia small amounts of her grandmother's natural remedy whenever possible. Each time Sophia became clear-headed, she remembered more details about the months leading up to her mother's death. Mama was scared all the time near the end, Sophia told Elena during one of their secret conversations in the library. She would check the locks on our doors twice every night. She said Richard's friends were dangerous people. "What kind of friends?" Elena asked gently. "Men who came to our old house late at night," Sophia replied. "They spoke in different languages and carried big bags. Mama said they weren't really Richard's friends, but people he had to work with because he owed them money." Elena realized Sophia was describing meetings with international criminals, probably related to money laundering operations. A 3-year-old wouldn't understand the significance of what she was seeing, but her memories could provide crucial details for investigators. "Did your mama ever take pictures or videos of these meetings?" Elena asked. Sophia nodded eagerly. "She had a little camera hidden in the kitchen. She showed me once where the red light was. She said it was our secret." Elena's heart raced. If Sophia's mother had recorded Richard's illegal meetings, that evidence might still exist somewhere. Do you know what happened to that camera? I think she gave it to Uncle Miguel before she went to sleep forever, Sophia said thoughtfully. He came to visit the day before, and they talked in whispers for a long time. Elena made a mental note to try to find this Uncle Miguel. He might have crucial evidence that could expose the entire criminal operation. But Elena's careful investigation was about to be discovered in the most dangerous way possible. On a Wednesday morning, while Victoria was at her yoga class and Richard was supposedly at his office, Elena was helping Sophia practice speaking more clearly in the library. They had been working for about an hour when they heard the front door open unexpectedly. "Quick," Elena whispered to Sophia. "Pretend to read and don't say anything, no matter what happens." Sophia immediately grabbed a book and assumed her usual silent position, but Elena could see fear in the child's eyes. Heavy footsteps approached the library, and Richard Montgomery appeared in the doorway. Elena had rarely seen him during the day, and his presence felt immediately threatening. He was a large man with cold blue eyes and an expensive suit that couldn't hide his intimidating physical presence. "Elena," he said in a voice that made her skin crawl, "I need to speak with you privately." Elena's mouth went dry, but she tried to appear calm. "Of course, Mr. Montgomery. I was just finishing dusting the bookshelves." "Leave that," Richard commanded. "Come with me to my study." Elena glanced at Sophia, who was staring at her book, but obviously listening to every word. The child's hands were trembling slightly as she turned pages. "Should I bring Sophia?" Elena asked, hoping to avoid being alone with Richard. "No," Richard replied sharply. "Sophia stays here. This conversation is between adults." Elena had no choice but to follow Richard to his upstairs study. As they walked through the hallways, her mind raced through possible explanations for why he wanted to talk to her. Had he discovered her investigation? Had someone seen her in his private office? Richard's study was smaller than his basement office, but equally intimidating. He closed the door behind them and gestured for Elena to sit in a chair across from his desk. Instead of sitting himself, he remained standing, using his height to loom over her. "I've been hearing interesting things about you, Elena," Richard began, his voice deceptively casual. "My security system records all conversations in this house for safety reasons. Imagine my surprise when I reviewed this week's recordings." Elena's blood turned to ice. She had assumed the house might have security cameras, but she hadn't considered hidden microphones that could record private conversations. "I don't understand, Mr. Montgomery," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Richard walked to a computer on his desk and pressed a button. Elena heard her own voice coming through speakers, clear as day. "This is made from plants that grow in my homeland. It's completely natural and safe. It might help you think more clearly and remember things better." Elena's hands began to shake as she realized just how much trouble she was in. "That's very interesting," Richard continued, playing more of the recording. "Let me play my favorite part." Sophia's voice filled the room. "I remember her. She smelled like flowers. She used to sing to me in Spanish." Richard stopped the recording and smiled, but there was no warmth in his expression. "My daughter hasn't spoken a word in 5 years, Elena. Yet within a week of your arrival, she's suddenly having conversations about her deceased mother. How do you explain that?" Elena knew there was no point in denying what Richard had obviously heard. Her only hope was to try to protect Sophia from his anger. "She's just a little girl who misses her mother," Elena said quietly. "There's nothing wrong with helping her remember happy times. There's everything wrong with it." Richard exploded, his calm facade disappearing. "Sophia is mentally ill. Her medications are prescribed by qualified doctors to keep her stable. You have no right to interfere with her treatment. Those medications are making her sick," Elena said bravely. "She's not mentally ill. She's grieving." Richard's face turned red with fury. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, Elena." Sophia's mother was a disturbed woman who filled that child's head with lies and paranoid fantasies. The medications helped Sophia forget traumatic memories that would otherwise destroy her mental health. "What traumatic memories?" Elena challenged, knowing she was taking an enormous risk. Memories of a mother who loved her, memories of being happy. Richard moved closer to Elena's chair, his presence becoming more threatening. Memories of things she thinks she saw but didn't understand. Memories that could cause serious problems for many people if they were taken seriously. Elena realized Richard was essentially admitting that Sophia had witnessed criminal activities. She was 3 years old. Whatever she saw couldn't hurt anyone now. "You're wrong about that," Richard said coldly. Sophia's memories, combined with certain evidence that may or may not exist, could destroy lives and businesses. That's why her medication is so important. It keeps her peaceful and prevents her from obsessing over things that are better left forgotten. Elena understood now that Richard knew exactly what evidence existed and where it might be hidden. He was keeping Sophia medicated not just to prevent her from speaking, but to prevent her from remembering where her mother had hidden proof of his crimes. "I want you to understand something very clearly," Richard continued, leaning down so his face was inches from Elena's. "My daughter will continue taking her prescribed medications exactly as directed. You will not give her any more of your home remedies, and you will never again encourage her to discuss her biological mother. Is that clear?" Elena nodded, not trusting her voice to remain steady. "Furthermore," Richard said, straightening up, "I've decided that Sophia needs more specialized care than we can provide at home. I'm arranging for her to be admitted to a private residential facility where trained professionals can give her the intensive treatment she requires." Elena's heart sank. A private facility controlled by Richard would mean Sophia would be completely isolated from anyone who might help her. She would probably be kept heavily sedated for years, possibly for the rest of her life. When Elena managed to ask, "The arrangements will be finalized within the week," Richard replied. "You'll continue caring for her until then, but under much closer supervision. Victoria will be monitoring your interactions with Sophia very carefully." Richard moved to his desk and picked up a thick envelope. "This contains your final payment, plus a very generous bonus. In exchange, you'll sign a confidentiality agreement stating that you'll never discuss anything you've observed in this household. You'll also agree never to attempt to contact Sophia after she's moved to the residential facility." Elena stared at the envelope, understanding that this was both a bribe and a threat. If she took the money and signed the agreement, she would be legally bound to remain silent about Sophia's situation. If she refused, Richard would find other ways to ensure her silence. "What if I don't sign?" Elena asked. Richard's smile became truly sinister. "Elena, you're an undocumented immigrant working under a false social security number. If I report you to immigration authorities, you'll be deported within days. Your daughter will lose her university enrollment and her dreams of becoming a doctor. Is that really worth risking for a child who isn't even your responsibility?" Elena felt trapped. Richard had clearly investigated her background thoroughly and knew exactly how to threaten her most effectively. "I need time to think about this," Elena said weakly. "You have until tomorrow morning," Richard replied. "Sign the papers and take the money or face the consequences of your interference." Elena left Richard's study knowing that she had less than 24 hours to figure out how to save both Sophia and herself. She also knew that Richard would probably be monitoring her every move from now on, making it almost impossible to contact outside help. When Elena returned to the library, Sophia was still pretending to read, but tears were streaming down her face. The child had obviously heard enough of the conversation to understand that she was in serious danger. Elena sat down beside Sophia and spoke very quietly, hoping the security microphones wouldn't pick up her whisper. "I'm not going to let them take you away. We're going to find a way out of this." Sophia looked up at Elena with desperate hope in her eyes, but neither of them spoke again. They both understood that every word they said was now being recorded and analyzed. That evening, as Elena served dinner and watched Victoria add extra medication to Sophia's food, she made a decision that would either save them both or destroy any chance they had of escape. She was going to take the biggest risk of her life, and she was going to take it tonight. Elena spent the evening pretending to go about her normal duties while secretly planning the most dangerous night of her life. She knew that Richard's security system was monitoring everything, but she also knew this might be her last opportunity to save Sophia before the child disappeared into a private facility forever. At 10 o'clock, after the family had gone to bed, Elena waited in her room for 2 hours to ensure everyone was asleep. Then, she quietly made her way to the kitchen, where she prepared a special mixture using techniques her grandmother had taught her decades ago. This wasn't the gentle remedy she had been giving Sophia to counteract her medications. This was a powerful natural stimulant that would completely flush the psychiatric drugs from the child's system and restore her mental clarity for several hours. It was risky because Sophia would experience a dramatic change in consciousness, but Elena knew it was their only chance. At midnight, Elena crept through the darkened hallways to Sophia's room. The child was lying in bed, heavily sedated from her evening medications, but Elena gently shook her awake. Sofia, Elena whispered urgently. I need you to wake up and listen carefully. Sophia opened her eyes groggily, struggling to focus through the haze of drugs in her system. I have something stronger than before, Elena explained, showing her a small vial of dark liquid. This will make you feel very alert and clear-headed, but we have to be extremely quiet. Do you trust me? Sophia nodded weakly and opened her mouth to accept the liquid. Elena administered the remedy and then sat beside the bed, watching for signs that it was taking effect. Within 20 minutes, Sophia's eyes began to clear dramatically. She sat up in bed, fully alert and aware for the first time in years. The difference was so striking that Elena hardly recognized her as the same child. I feel like I've been sleeping for a very long time, Sophia whispered, her voice stronger and more mature than Elena had ever heard it. You have been, Elena confirmed. But now I need to act fast. Your father wants to send you away to a place where you'll never be able to speak about what you remember. Tonight is our only chance to get help. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but her expression was determined rather than frightened. What do we need to do? Elena pulled out a cell phone she had borrowed from another domestic worker. We're going to call the FBI and tell them everything you remember about your mother and the evidence she hid. But first, I need you to help me find Uncle Miguel. Uncle Miguel wasn't really my uncle, Sophia explained, her memories flooding back with startling clarity. He was Mama's friend who worked for a newspaper. She said he wrote stories about bad people to warn everyone about them. Elena realized that Uncle Miguel was probably an investigative journalist who had been helping Sophia's mother expose Richard's criminal activities. Do you remember his last name or where he worked? Elena asked. Sophia closed her eyes and concentrated. Miguel Santos. He worked for the City Herald newspaper. Mama said he was the only person she trusted to tell the truth about what Richard was doing. Elena quickly searched online for Miguel Santos at the City Herald and found his contact information. It was nearly 1 a.m, but this couldn't wait until business hours. When Miguel answered his phone, Elena quickly explained who she was and why she was calling. There was a long pause before Miguel responded. I've been waiting 5 years for this phone call, Miguel said quietly. Is the child safe? Can she talk about what happened? She's safe for now, but not for long, Elena replied. Richard is planning to send her to a private facility within days. She remembers everything about the night her mother died and about the evidence that was hidden. Listen carefully, Miguel said urgently. Isabella, Sophia's mother, gave me copies of financial documents and a memory card containing video evidence of Richard's meetings with money launderers. I've been working with FBI investigators, but we needed Sophia's testimony to corroborate what the evidence shows. Elena felt a surge of hope. So you can help us? I could do better than that, Miguel replied. I can have FBI agents at your location within an hour. But you need to keep Sophia hidden until they arrive. If Richard realizes what's happening, he'll try to move her immediately. Elena looked at Sophia, who had been listening intently to every word. We can hide in the basement storage room, Sophia suggested. There are places behind the old furniture where no one would think to look. Elena thought this was a good plan. The basement storage area was far from the main living areas and had multiple hiding spots among boxes and covered furniture. Miguel, we'll be in the basement storage room, Elena said into the phone. Tell the FBI agents to look for us there. And hurry. Elena and Sophia quickly gathered the evidence from the teddy bear, along with the photographs Elena had taken of Richard's private documents. They also took the bottle of Sophia's medications as proof of the medical abuse. Moving as quietly as possible through the dark house, they made their way to the basement. The storage room was large and filled with furniture covered by white sheets, creating perfect hiding places. Elena and Sophia crawled behind a stack of covered furniture near the back wall and settled in to wait for help to arrive. For the first time in hours, they had a moment to really talk. I'm scared, Sophia admitted, but I'm also angry. Richard killed my mama, and he's been keeping me like a prisoner ever since. Elena was surprised by the maturity in Sophia's voice. Without the medications clouding her mind, she sounded much older than her 8 years. Tell me what you remember about that night, Elena encouraged. The FBI agents will need to hear everything. Sophia took a deep breath and began recounting memories that had been buried under years of psychiatric medications. Mama had been collecting evidence for weeks, Sophia began. She would record conversations when Richard thought she was sleeping. She found papers in his office that showed he was helping bad people hide money they stole. What happened the night she died? Elena asked gently. Mama was packing our clothes in secret. She said we were going to leave in the morning and never come back. She hid papers in my teddy bear and told me that if anything happened to her, I should give them to Uncle Miguel. Sophia's voice began to shake, but she continued bravely. That night, Richard came home angry. He was yelling at Mama about missing money. He said his business partners thought she had stolen from them. Elena encouraged Sophia to continue, knowing these details would be crucial for the FBI. Mama denied taking anything, but Richard didn't believe her. He gave her a drink and told her it would help her calm down. After she drank it, she got very sleepy and confused. That's when Richard called someone on the phone and said the problem was being handled. Elena felt sick as she realized Sophia had witnessed her mother being deliberately poisoned. Richard carried Mama to bed, but she was hardly breathing. Sophia continued, tears streaming down her face. I tried to wake her up the next morning, but she wouldn't open her eyes. Richard told everyone she had taken too many pills by accident, but I saw him put something in her drink. Elena hugged Sophia tightly, amazed by the child's courage in recounting such traumatic memories. After Mama died, Richard married Victoria very quickly, Sophia continued. Victoria started giving me medicine that made me forget things and made it hard to talk. They said it was because I was sick with sadness, but I think they were trying to make me forget what I saw. Elena realized that Richard and Victoria had been systematically suppressing Sophia's memories and voice to prevent her from ever testifying about what she had witnessed. You're very brave to remember all this, Elena told Sophia. Your mama would be proud of how strong you are. They heard footsteps in the hallway above them, and Elena's heart began racing. It was too early for the FBI agents to have arrived, which meant someone in the household was awake and moving around. The footsteps grew louder and seemed to be heading toward the basement stairs. Elena and Sophia pressed themselves deeper into their hiding spot behind the furniture. Richard's voice echoed through the basement as he called out, Elena, Sophia, I know you're down here. My security system alerted me when you left your rooms. Elena cursed herself for not realizing the house probably had motion detectors in addition to cameras and microphones. You're only making this harder on yourselves, Richard continued, his footsteps moving closer to the storage room. Elena, I gave you a chance to take the money and leave quietly. Now you force me to handle this situation differently. Elena could hear Richard moving furniture around, systematically checking each hiding spot. It was only a matter of time before he found them. "Sophia, I know you can hear me," Richard called out. "The medicine that woman gave you will wear off soon, and you'll go back to feeling confused and sleepy. Wouldn't it be easier to just come out now?" Elena made a desperate decision. She whispered to Sophia, "Stay hidden no matter what happens. The FBI is coming. When they arrive, tell them everything you told me." Before Sophia could protest, Elena crawled out from behind the furniture and stood up in the storage room. "She's not here, Richard," Elena said loudly. "I sent her away where you'll never find her." Richard spun around to face Elena, his expression furious. "Where is she?" "Somewhere safe," Elena replied, praying that Sophia would have the sense to stay hidden. "Somewhere she can tell people the truth about what you did to her mother." Richard's face turned purple with rage. "You have no idea what you've done, Elena. Sophia is a sick child who needs medication. Without proper treatment, she could hurt herself or others." "She's not sick," Elena shouted back. "She's a little girl who watched you murder her mother. You've been drugging her to keep her quiet, but people know the truth now." Elena was stalling for time, hoping the FBI agents would arrive before Richard could find Sophia. But Richard pulled a gun from his jacket, and Elena realized she had severely underestimated how far he was willing to go to protect his secrets. "You're going to tell me exactly where Sophia is," Richard said coldly, pointing the weapon at Elena. "And then you're going to help me make sure she never speaks to anyone about her confused childhood memories." Elena heard sirens in the distance and prayed they were heading to the Montgomery estate. But she also knew that Richard was desperate enough to do something terrible before help could arrive. The next few minutes would determine whether Sophia would finally get justice for her mother's death, or whether Richard's wealth and power would let him escape consequences once again. The sirens grew louder as FBI vehicles surrounded the Montgomery estate. Elena could hear car doors slamming and agents shouting instructions to each other outside. But Richard seemed beyond caring about the consequences of his actions. "You've destroyed everything," Richard snarled at Elena, his gun still pointed at her chest. 20 years of building this empire, and one stupid woman thinks she can bring it all down." Elena tried to keep him talking, hoping to buy time until the agents could enter the house. "It was already destroyed the night you killed Isabella. Everything since then has just been covering up your crimes." "Isabella was going to destroy the lives of hundreds of employees," Richard shot back. "My business dealings keep entire communities employed. One woman's idealistic notions about right and wrong weren't worth all those jobs." Elena heard heavy footsteps on the main floor above them, and Richard's eyes darted nervously toward the ceiling. He knew his time was running out. "Where is Sophia?" he demanded again, pressing the gun closer to Elena. Before Elena could answer, a small voice spoke from behind the furniture. "I'm here, Richard." Elena's heart sank as Sophia emerged from her hiding spot. The child's face was pale but determined, and she walked toward Richard with surprising composure. "Sophia, stay back," Elena warned, but the little girl ignored her. "I remember everything now," Sophia told Richard, her voice clear and strong. "I remember Mama hiding the camera in the kitchen. I remember you giving her the drink that made her sleepy. I remember you calling your friends and telling them the problem was solved." Richard's face twisted with a mixture of rage and desperation. "You were 3 years old. You don't understand what you think you saw." "I understand perfectly," Sophia replied with startling maturity. "You killed my mama because she was going to tell people about the bad things you do with money that doesn't belong to you. Then you and Victoria kept me drugged so I couldn't tell anyone what I saw." The basement door burst open, and FBI agents poured down the stairs with weapons drawn. "Drop your weapon," Agent Sarah Chun commanded as she led the team into the storage room. "FBI, nobody move." Richard spun around to face the agents, his gun swinging wildly between Elena and Sophia. For a terrifying moment, Elena thought he might shoot them both rather than surrender. But Sophia did something extraordinary. She walked calmly toward Richard, looking directly into his eyes. "You don't have to hurt anyone else," she said softly. "The truth is already out. Uncle Miguel has all the evidence Mama collected. Hurting me or Elena won't change anything." Richard stared down at Sophia in amazement. This was not the silent, compliant child he had controlled for 5 years. This was a bright, articulate young girl who understood exactly what was happening. "You sound just like her," Richard whispered, and for a moment his expression softened. "Just like Isabella when she thought she was saving the world." "Maybe I'm saving the world," Sophia replied. "Or at least saving other children from what you did to me." Richard's hand began to shake, and Elena could see him wavering between surrender and violence. The FBI agents held their positions, waiting for a clear shot that wouldn't endanger the civilians. "Mr. Montgomery," Agent Chin called out, "there's nowhere to go. Put down the weapon and let's talk." Richard looked around the storage room at the agents surrounding him, then back at Sophia's brave face. Something in the child's expression seemed to break through his desperation. "She was going to take you away from me," Richard said to Sophia, his voice cracking. "Isabella was going to disappear with you, and I would never see you again. I couldn't let that happen. So you killed her instead," Sophia said quietly. "And then you tried to kill my memory of her too." Richard's gun hand dropped slowly to his side. "I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted to keep my family together." "We were never your family," Sophia replied. "We were your prisoners." Richard finally let the gun fall to the floor and raised his hands in surrender. The FBI agents immediately moved in to secure the weapon and place him under arrest. As Agent Chin read "Richard is rights," Elena rushed to Sophia and wrapped her in a protective embrace. The child was trembling now that the immediate danger was over, but she remained remarkably composed. "You were so brave," Elena told her. "Your mama would be so proud of how you stood up to him." "I wasn't going to let him hurt you," Sophia replied. "You saved my voice. Now I can tell everyone what really happened." Agent Chin approached them once Richard had been taken upstairs. "Sophia, I'm Agent Chin. Miguel Santos has been helping us investigate your mother's death for 5 years. We've been waiting for you to be able to tell us what you remember." "I remember everything now," Sophia said confidently. "The medicine they gave me made it hard to think, but Elena helped me get my mind back." Over the next hour, as other agents searched the house and arrested Victoria as an accessory to child abuse, Elena watched Sophia give a detailed statement to the FBI. The child's memory was remarkably clear, and her testimony corroborated all the evidence Isabella had gathered before her death. Miguel Santos arrived at the house just as dawn was breaking. When he saw Sophia, tears filled his eyes. "You look so much like your mother," he told her gently. "She would be amazed by how brave and smart you've become." Sophia smiled for the first time since Elena had met her. "She told me you were someone we could trust." She was right. Miguel knelt down to Sophia's level. "Your mother's evidence is going to help put a lot of bad people in prison. Richard wasn't just stealing money. He was helping criminals from other countries hide money they got from hurting people. Your testimony will help make sure they can't hurt anyone else." Agent Chin explained to Elena and Sophia what would happen next. Richard would be charged with Isabella's murder as well as money laundering, tax evasion, and child abuse. Victoria would face charges for her role in medicating Sophia inappropriately and covering up the crimes. "What happens to Sophia now?" Elena asked, worried about the child's future. "Isabella had a sister in California who's been fighting for custody for 5 years," Agent Chin explained. "She's a teacher with 2 children of her own. She's been waiting to give Sophia a real home." Sophia looked uncertain about this news. "Will I have to live with strangers again?" Miguel pulled out his phone and showed Sophia a photo of a woman who looked remarkably like Isabella, surrounded by 2 smiling children in a sunny backyard. "This is your Aunt Carmen," Miguel explained. "She's been trying to find you ever since your mother died. She has your mother's letters and photo albums, and she knows all the stories about when you were little." Sophia studied the photo carefully. "She looks like Mama. She is very much like your mother," Miguel confirmed. She believes in fighting for what's right, just like Isabella did. And just like you did tonight. Elena felt a mixture of happiness and sadness as she realized that Sophia would soon be leaving to start a new life with her real family. She was thrilled that the child would finally be safe and loved, but she knew she would miss her terribly. "What about Elena?" Sophia asked suddenly. "Can she come with me? She saved my life." Agent Shin smiled. "Elena will be recognized as a hero for her role in exposing these crimes. She'll also be given protection from immigration issues as a witness in a federal case. She can go wherever she wants to go." Elena knelt down and took Sophia's hands. "Your aunt is your real family. You need to go with her and learn about your mother's side of the family. But we'll always be friends. Will you visit me?" Sophia asked hopefully. "If your aunt says it's okay, I would love to visit," Elena promised. "I want to see you grow up happy and free." 3 months later, Elena received a letter from California. It was written in careful 8-year-old handwriting. "Dear Elena, Aunt Carmen is teaching me to make tamales like Mama used to make. I'm going to a regular school now, and I have lots of friends. I tell them about how brave you were and how you gave me my voice back. The doctor here says all the bad medicine is out of my body now. I feel like myself again. I can remember Mama clearly, and Aunt Carmen shows me pictures of her when she was little. Richard is in prison and won't get out for a very long time. Miguel says other bad people are in prison too because of Mama's evidence. Thank you for not giving up on me. Mama must have sent you to save me. Love, Sophia. P.S. Aunt Carmen says you can come visit anytime. She wants to learn how to make your grandmother's remedies." Elena wiped away tears as she finished reading the letter. Her daughter Maria had graduated medical school and was now working as a pediatric resident, inspired by her mother's story to help children who couldn't advocate for themselves. Elena had decided to stay in the United States, using the settlement money from a lawsuit against the Montgomery estate to start a small nonprofit organization that helped other domestic workers report abuse and unsafe working conditions. She often thought about the night in the basement when Sophia found her voice again. Elena's grandmother had always taught her that healing came not just from herbs and remedies, but from courage, love, and the willingness to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Sophia's voice had been silenced by fear and medication, but it had been restored by someone who cared enough to take enormous risks. Now that voice would grow stronger every year, speaking truth and standing up for others who needed protection. Elena smiled as she carefully folded Sophia's letter and placed it with the other she had received. Tomorrow she would write back with news of her own work and plans for a summer visit to California. The little girl who couldn't speak had become a young advocate who would spend her life making sure other children's voices were heard. And Elena knew that Isabella would be proud of both her daughter and the woman who had helped set her free.